Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Jetske Duintje, and my preferred pronouns are she and her. I'm the director of the Spirit Change program, and it's my honor to welcome you to today's session of the Let's Chat Gender Equality series. And we'll be speaking on climate action and adaptability today. But I would like to start with a land acknowledgement. The Spirit Change program is a national program, and the Spirit team members find themselves on different territories. But I would like to acknowledge that I find myself today in Tiohtià:ke, also known as Montreal, which is located on unceded indigenous lands. The Kanien'kehá:ka Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which the city is built today. Tiohtià:ke is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it's home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. I respect the continuous connections with the past, present, and future in the ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within around the Montreal community. When preparing this land honoring, I was thinking about Tiohtià:ke and how it is on an island that's surrounded by waters of the Rivière de Paris and the mighty St. Lawrence River. And water is considered sacred in many Indigenous communities and cultures around the world. For these communities, water is more than just a resource. It's a way of life and a crucial aspect of their cultural identity. Indigenous people have relied on water for their livelihood, spiritual practices, and traditional knowledge for generations. They have a deep understanding of the interconnectedness between water, land, and all living things. In many Indigenous cultures, water is seen as a living entity with its own spirit, and it's believed that humans have a responsibility to protect and care for it. It is essential that we listen to and learn from Indigenous peoples and their traditional ecological knowledge to better understand how to protect and conserve water for future generations. I invite you to reflect on that when we talk today about gender equality and climate action and adaptability. So this is our small agenda. This is still the welcome and introduction currently going on. We'll have speaker presentations, followed by question and answers, and then we'll have some closing remarks. First, a little bit about the Spirit Change program, which is a 7-year initiative funded by Global Affairs Canada, implemented by the Intercouncil Network. And it's aiming to increase the effectiveness of Canadian small and medium organizations, or we call them SMOs, to deliver the sustainable results in support of the feminist international assistance policy and the sustainable development goals, and promote engagement of Canadians, particularly young people, in international cooperation. The program is set to end in December this year, but we have many capacity building opportunities coming up this fall. So that leads me into today's session. One of Spirit Change's core pillars is promoting knowledge sharing amongst the international cooperation sector, particularly highlighting the work and innovation of small and medium organizations. The Let's Chat series is one way we are encouraging peer knowledge sharing. And in the changing world we all live in, it is more important than ever that we center inclusive gender equality and equity practices to deliver sustainable results. So for today, we have invited a great panel of SMOs to present on the roles of women and girls in climate action and their work. Without further ado, I will briefly introduce each speaker, and then we will start the presentation portion of today's webinar. The first speaker is Ahumusa Rona, an award-winning leader in Kampala, Uganda, recognized by both local and international civil society groups, such as the Real Play Coalition, the Lego Foundation, Dreamtown Denmark, and UN Habitat, for her work in creating climate-resilient public green spaces in underdeserved communities, making children and women feel safe in the city. After that, we'll hear from Anne Thompson, who is the project director for Salasan's Climate Leadership for Indigenous Women in Nepal project, which is funded by Global Affairs Canada Development Impact Window. Anne has worked with Salasan since 2008 and has built her expertise as a gender and inclusion specialist through involvement in more than 15 initiatives and projects around the world. Then lastly, Nicolas Mbenge, who will present on the CEDAP project, implemented by the Cégep de la Gaspésie et des Îles. Nicolas joins us from Senegal, where he is the Cégep's operation coordinator at the Dakar office. He has contributed to the implementation of projects on climate change, climate adaptation and mitigation, biodiversity conservation, forest and fisheries resource management, and food security with gender equity as a guiding theme across projects. I am looking forward to hearing from you all today, and I will now pass it over to Ahumusa. Are you ready to unmute yourself and take over?
Yes, please. Thank you so much for the introduction. My apologies. I've tried to pronounce your name, but I couldn't get it right. So I will proceed. My name is Rona Ahumuza. As introduced, I work with an organization called Holistic Actions for Development and Empowerment. We are a community-based organization located in Kampala, Uganda, along the shores of Lake Victoria, in a small community. They call them ghetto communities within our society. And we were working with young women. Our mission, our vision is to create self-reliant communities and safe spaces where adolescent girls and young women can act as pillars of change. And we have our values, which is creativity and integrity. We put women and young girls first, and we are accountable, as you can see. Through our community-based organization, we have done our best. As you have heard, we are along the shores of Lake Victoria, and it's a community that is prone to flooding. The fact that it's a ghetto community, there are no formal settlements. Therefore, we try our best to make sure that however much we are in informal settlements, we are adapting to the effects of climate change and making sure that we are safe, we are resilient, and we are as well creating an impact to make sure that our communities are better. And therefore, we are doing this through different initiatives. One of them is a climate action podcast where women are sharing and voicing their views and ideas through life-lived experiences. They invite local leaders, they communicate their ideas, they communicate their challenges, and they find solutions together. However much it's in the primary stages, we are mobilizing and making sure that at least by the end of the month, it's functional and we can host, hopefully we can host Spa Change at one point in time. So yeah, it will be coming soon. The next initiative is the green spaces, the women-friendly public green spaces that help us to mitigate climate change, most especially to mitigate urban heat. Right now, we have 2 seasons in Uganda, that is wet and dry season. So we are supposed to be in a dry season right now, but as I speak, it is hot, it is dusty, and it is unbearable. So we created spaces where young people, women, youth, adolescent girls can come and they feel safe. It's past working hours. But if I open, I'm at office, by the way, but if I open, already there are young people who are seeking shelter under these green havens. But the uniqueness about them is that in our city, in Kampala, we do not have a lot of spaces where women and breastfeeding mothers feel safe and can take shelter or can seek safety. Let's say if they are in markets, because most are like 72% of women are the ones in the informal sector, and you find that they are working with their children, but in these spaces where they are working in the informal markets, they do not have spaces where they can go and change a child's diaper or breastfeed safely. So our space, the uniqueness is that it has a breastfeeding corner, it has sanitary pad dispensers, because we believe that for women to be safe, they need to be in a space where they can have access to some of the utilities like sanitary pads. And it's rare because some young girls in our society, in some of the communities, they can forego school because they cannot afford a sanitary pads during the menstrual periods. So our initiative ensures that as long as they are in our space, at least they are assured of their safety, of their dignity, and they are safe and okay. And then the next initiative is the Urban Recycling Academy, where we have a campaign, we call it Keeping Lake Victoria Alive. And during that campaign, we carry out community cleanups. During the cleanups, we have a process where we audit and sort the waste. We sort the branded, we sort unbranded, we sort organic, we sort inorganic, and depending on the type of the rubbish, then it is distributed according to the use. So most of the inorganic waste is taken to our urban recycling center, and it is recycled and repurposed into children's play items, which then later on, when a child feels like they have outgrown, let's say, a plastic bottle, when they feel that they do not need it anymore, it can be repurposed and used into it's given a new life. So while we are doing the cleanup, while the young mothers are busy in their markets and trying to make ends meet, the children are at our play learning center, playing with the such materials. They are doing calculations, they are doing reading. So that's how we are keeping our community to adapt to climate change and the effects of that come with it. And then our next initiative is Women in Sustainable Enterprises. Our intention with this initiative is to promote women-led initiatives, by creating resilient products. And previously, we had a challenge where we would skill these young mothers. Skillings include tailoring, shoemaking, recycling, and a lot of other things, as well as tailoring, plus other young women who are doing bamboo and others who are doing things like briquettes that is turned into charcoal for daily use, but it's made from organic waste. So the challenge was that we would do this, and afterwards you have skilled someone, but they did not have a way forward. So you train someone and you're like, you're done with the course, it's okay, you can go ahead and start producing. By then it was very difficult. Whenever I would tell someone that we have trained 100 young women to do something, then someone would ask you, okay, where are they? What are they doing? And it was a very difficult question to answer because it was difficult to follow up with these young girls. You have not given them a platform to start from. So we established a Her City Market Corner, which is to help them to showcase their products. However much they do not have startup capital, but they are encouraged to still use the available structures at the space, and then they use the shop to display and market their products. And then some of them are recycling and doing like the ladies who are doing the bamboo items. They sell them into supermarkets and they export them. So it's an initiative that has helped women. However much we see climate change as a disaster, we are trying to make turning the challenges that come with climate change into solutions at our space. women participation in establishment of in backyard gardening. So in my introduction, as I said earlier, we are in a community which is prone to flooding. And it's one of the biggest challenges because, yeah, it's near the lake, it rains, and the lake floods and spills into the community. And as you can imagine, it's mostly the young women, the young mothers, the children that are affected by this disaster. So we came up with an idea in our ghetto community to start creating solutions in regards to flood catchment. And we came up with an idea of creating water gardens. Water gardens are meant to reduce the flow of water. So we trained young women to, it's a long process, but I'm going to use the little knowledge that can help me to make it very short given in the time. So they can create like a sock pit. They put required items like stones, the wire mesh, the PVC pipe, and the PVC polythene bags to make sure that the pits are not drowned and covered by the flood. So instead of an area flooding when it rains, if it's supposed to rain by like 1 hour, for the last 30 minutes, this soak pit is collecting water. So instead of water piling in an area, it is collecting into the soak pit. And by the time the rain stops, at least the flow of water has reduced, and therefore there is no flooding. And it has helped us a lot. Our space itself was affected by flooding, but currently we do not experience this. And then also the backyard gardening, the fact that when it floods, there is a lot that gets destroyed, and young women are affected because they are mostly the family keepers. So you find that their businesses are destroyed, their income is normal. So we came up with an idea of starting backyard gardening using the discarded waste items like plastic bottles, tires, and stuff like that. So the beauty of this idea is that when someone feels like they would like to leave an area, they are able to even carry their garden with them. And it has helped young women and community members within our society. So that's how we are living amongst the challenges and making sure that, we adapt and we are resilient in regards to whatever the challenges that comes our way. And what drives us is that we believe in just more than, we believe in more than inclusivity, and we believe in effectiveness when it comes to women involvement in climate change. Because like I said earlier, these are people who are living, who are solving challenges based on their life lived experiences. And therefore, we think that they know better the kind of ways and the kind of ideas and innovations that can work for them. And that is why we are putting them at the forefront of climate change, adaptation, and resilience. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Aymusa, for your presentation and all the great work you're doing, not only promoting women, but putting them in leadership positions while tackling climate issues and promoting the preservation of the environment. Thank you so much. We'll get back to this later, hopefully, in the questions. For now, I would like to pass it over to Anne. Anne, please unmute yourself. And are you ready to take it over from here?
I am, thank you. Let me just. My apologies. Are you seeing the piece on the side?
We see indeed your full screen still. Maybe you can go on the bottom and remember the little icon there next to the minus sign. A little bit more. Yes, that one. That will get you into presentation mode.
There we are.
Yes, perfect.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for your interest in this project. I have to say that it's rather strange to be making this presentation at a time when it seems that Nepal is in full revolt against its government, and at least the young people of Nepal are, and for uh, reasons that may become clear in this presentation. The sorry, Clan is a $2 million project implemented by Salasan Consulting in partnership with the Canadian Centre for Indigenous Environmental Resources, CIR, which is an Indigenous environmental organization based in and around Winnipeg, Manitoba. The idea behind this project was that we wanted to address some of the issues that are affecting Indigenous women in particular in the Middle Hills of Nepal. They're affected very, very severely by climate change, and we wanted to empower them to be able to take charge of and to develop their own approach and work with governments to improve their situation. Plan is a $2 million project. Oh, I've said that already. I'm sorry. Just wanted to add to the two comments here that the Himalayan region is one of the global climate hotspots. Nepal and the other Himalayan countries are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, including risks of glacial melting, landslides, and severe weather events such as flood and droughts. And we have had at least one of those since the project started. Indigenous people and Indigenous women are particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change. We began the project thinking that we would be able to work with about 2,500 Indigenous women. These are direct beneficiaries that we're listing here. But in fact, the project has been so popular, I would say, with the women that we have a much larger population that we're working with than we had initially expected. The participants also include children and youth in schools. Using a tool developed by the project, women leaders make presentations on climate change and its gendered impacts in schools and community centers to huge response and success. Eventually, our aim is to reach all 250,000 inhabitants in the area where the project is implemented through networking and media. To implement CLAN, we work entirely with Indigenous women and Indigenous women's organizations in Nepal. Our primary partner is the National Indigenous Women's Forum, and in the field, we work with another local NGO called the Indigenous Women's Upliftment Center. We work in 2 rural municipalities and 4 districts in each rural municipality. So 8 districts in all. We have 6 field workers in each rural municipality, and these 4 young women are 4 of our very, very effective field staff. we have a small group in Kathmandu, a gender specialist, an environmental specialist, and a finance manager for overall management and capacity building. And this small team has been able to achieve a tremendous amount over the year and a half that the project has been implemented. We have trained 50 Indigenous women and girls as climate leaders and mobilized 25 climate action groups in their settlements. And these are very small, isolated settlements. So they've developed their own climate adaptation plans, small climate adaptation projects and initiatives. One of the things that we really did want to do in this project was to both test the possibility of sharing Indigenous knowledge between Canadian Indigenous groups and Nepali Indigenous groups. So we have a small team of Indigenous women experts in Canada who are climate specialists, and an advisory committee that meets every 3 months, consisting of Nepali gender and climate experts and our Indigenous group here in Canada, 2 First Nations women and 1 Métis woman. And they're beginning to find that they have much more in common than I think they thought they would have. And that's been very, very rewarding. Gender barriers for Tamang, the largest group that we work with is the Tamang group, and they are, in fact, the largest population of Indigenous people in Nepal. They make up about 5% of the total population. But for Indigenous women in Nepal, the barriers are the same as we see in many parts of the world: a heavy workload, a lot of household responsibilities. And all of this is exacerbated by the fact that the men have emigrated out of the villages, so that there are many of these small settlements where there may be 1 or 2 men, and some where there are no men or boys over the age of about 17 at all. And that has been a particularly difficult problem for women in Nepal. One of the I would guess say complicating issues becomes women's safety and bodily integrity. They have to walk long distances for water now, for forage for their cattle. And although sexual and gender-based violence within communities, Indigenous communities, is relatively low because of the local social system and caste system, they're very vulnerable to outside violence, and all of these things affect their safety. In one municipality where we're working, one of the 2, it is the largest population of women. I'm not saying this very well. More women and girls are trafficked out of this particular municipality than anywhere else in Nepal. And we have started to work with some of the women who have been able to return. Gender barriers also include, as one would expect, limited access to education, and particularly education in their own language. They tell us that they have been very, very conscious of the environmental changes, but didn't understand what was causing them. So a lack of awareness about climate change, and now they're beginning to understand why these things are happening and a little bit about what they can do about it. they're particularly physically vulnerable to floods and landslides, diseases, animal predation, because they're out in the fields working, and there are no male relatives or community members to take on that work. Lack of water leads to shortened growing seasons. Some of them tell us that they only have enough food for 6 months, sometimes even 3 months. So it's a unique situation with so many men away, and this lack of employment is I would guess one of the reasons that it's finally all come to a head, and the protests are being carried out, at least in Kathmandu. We're hoping not in our more isolated areas. Women's health and welfare is a barrier as well, as you would expect. Limited health care access, lack of health and family planning, all of the multiple pregnancies all affect women's health. Yes, I think probably I have already spoken to that one. So let me go on. Huge climate risks for these women. About 6 months ago, 8 months ago, there was flooding in one of our districts, and it is considered one of the most climatically vulnerable districts in a country that is already very vulnerable. And houses are just swept away. People are swept away. Fields are flooded and ruined. And so that, of course, exacerbates food security problems. However, we are beginning to see some quite, I think, impressive results. We're seeing Indigenous women stepping into, let me go back. Whoop. I seem to have brought you to the end of this project without showing you our results. And
Hi, Anne. I think if you click previous, do you see
Thank-
that? I think that
you.
should bring you back.
Thank you. And again, more previous, I think, if I can. Nope, I've done it again. Can you show me?
Perhaps try instead going to the bottom. Oh yeah, or you can just restart. So go back to the slide. To let you know, we are at around 12 minutes.
All right. Well, then I'll be very fast.
Okay, perfect. Thank
and
you.
just say that we're seeing that they are stepping into leadership on climate action. Women who sometimes had never spoken in public before are taking that on. They're learning about policies and making their own decisions. They're approaching their local governments. And governments have been very, I think, surprisingly responsive. And so we are hoping that this will make a big difference on the local scene. And finally, even now, halfway through the project, we're seeing increased community awareness, innovative climate projects that are showing success, and knowledge that is shared between Canadian and Nepali Indigenous groups. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne, for that wonderful presentation and the amazing work you do in Nepal. And thank you for showing us the importance of the role of women and girls in climate action, and to talk about how gender barriers contribute to women being impacted more negatively by climate change. I will now hand it over to Nicola. And I will remind people in the meantime, please don't forget to choose the tab with the slides you prefer on the top of your screen. If not, you'll be stuck in the meeting room. Nicola, are you there? Are you ready to take it over?
Ouais,
Ah,
merci
pardon, je
beaucoup.
devrais avoir. Ouais, pardon.
Exact. On me passe la main. Yes, over to me. I will just put up my slides.
Allô, Diaxki, tu peux me passer la main pour que je puisse présenter?
Can you hand it over to me,
Salut,
Jetske? Can I
vous
speak?
devez avoir la permission pour partager votre écran juste en bas de l'écran.
Ouais, j'ai la permission, mais j'ai l'impression qu'il y a quelqu'un qui est en train de toujours présenter. Il faut qu'il me laisse la main, c'est juste ça.
Um, n-
Ouais,
um,
mais c'est bon, c'est bon.
yeah. Nous avons la permission d'avoir deux diapos en même temps.
Yes, we can have two
Euh,
slides at the same time, so
Parfait,
you should be
parfait.
able to present.
Allez-y.
Merci beaucoup, Diaxti, et
Thank you
bonjour à
very
toutes et
much,
tous.
Jetske.
C'est un plaisir pour
Hello,
le
everyone.
Cégep de participer à
I'm
ce webinaire
really
sur
glad in the
l'équité de
CEGEP
genre
I'm
sous le
working
prisme
for.
de
I'm
l'action
very happy to
climatique.
present
Et
our
nous sommes heureux de
equity,
vous
gender
présenter
equity,
le modèle
and
du projet
climate
Solutions
action
écosystémiques
project,
d'adaptation durable,
which is
qui est un
a
projet mis en œuvre par le
ecosystem
Cégep de la Gaspésie et des Îles.
project.
Donc,
It is
tout au long de ma
presented
présentation,
by
je vous
the
présenterai
Cégep de Gaspésie and des Îles.
succinctement les interventions du Cégep
So
en
I want
Afrique de
to
l'Ouest.
present to you
Ensuite,
the
le
interventions
projet
of our
s'adapte
CEGEP in West
dans
Africa
ses grandes lignes, notamment les solutions
and an
climatiques qui
overview
sont
of the
mises en
climate
œuvre
solutions
et
that we've put
comment
forward.
l'équité et l'inclusion genre est
I want to
adressée
show
dans le
you
cadre
also how
de ce
equity and
projet-là.
inclusion
Et
has been
pour
central to
finir,
this
nous aurons
project.
quelques
And
impacts du
to
genre à cette
wrap
étape
up,
de mise en œuvre du
I'll
projet
speak
CEDAP.
about the gender impacts of this
Donc, le
project.
Cégep de la Gaspésie est
The
une
CEGEP of
institution
Gaspésie
d'enseignement supérieur
is a higher
qui est basée
education,
en
a
Gaspésie
post-secondary
au
education
Canada, mais qui mène des projets de
institution
développement à
in the
l'international.
Gaspésie region of
Actuellement, nous
Canada,
avons
but that
un certain
acts
nombre
internationally
de
as well.
projets,
We have a
dont
certain
certains
amount of
sont
projects,
clôturés,
some of which
notamment le
have
projet
closed,
APOSEP,
like the
avec
APOSEB
des axes
project,
d'intervention sur
which
l'adaptation au
was
changement
focused
climatique, la
on
gestion
climate
des
change
ressources naturelles,
adaptation,
la
natural
transformation
resource
agroalimentaire
management,
améliorée et
and
la gouvernance féminine. Il
agro
y a aussi le
transformation
projet
and
gouvernance
feminine governance.
économique féminine
There's
et
also the
innovation, dont
GEFI
les axes
program,
d'intervention
which
sont
was
l'entrepreneuriat
focused
chez
on
les jeunes,
entrepreneurial
l'innovation sociale en
innovation with
environnement
the
et
youth,
aussi la
social
formation.
innovation,
Le projet
environment,
ostréiculture rurale et
and
adaptation
training.
aussi est clôturé,
Our other
dont,
project, which
dans
has
les
wrapped
activités
up,
concernées
is
surtout
the
le développement
ostreiculture
d'activités
rural
ostréicoles améliorées
program
et la recherche
and
académique. Actuellement,
natural resource
nous sommes en
management
train de
and
mettre
academic
en œuvre ce
research.
projet phare, le
And as
projet
we
économie
speak,
circulaire
we
et
are
adaptation,
setting up
qui est
our
en train de mettre en
ECA
échelon
program
l'initiative ostréicole qui a été commencée avec le
and
projet
the
GEFI,
SEDAD.
mais aussi des actions par rapport à la pisciculture, la gestion des ressources naturelles et
And
la recherche académique.
there
Il
is
y a aussi
academic
le projet
research
CEDAT,
as
Solutions
well
écosystémiques
as
d'adaptation durable, donc, que je vais vous
ecosystemic
présenter
approach.
en détail.
Oyster is oyster farming or
Le projet
aquaculture.
CEDAT est un projet
Um,
financé par Affaires mondiales Canada qui est
Our
en train d'être
project is
mis en œuvre
financed by
jusqu'en mars 2026.
Global
C'est un
Affairs
financement
Canada.
de 15 millions de dollars
It's a project
canadiens,
that is funded with
dont
15
l'objectif,
million
disons,
Canadian
est
dollars,
l'amélioration
and
de
the
l'adaptation au
objectives
changement
are
climatique des
improvement
populations par la mise en place
of
de
the
solutions
adaptation
fondées
to
sur la
climate
nature,
change
sous le leadership des
by the
femmes, des jeunes femmes
populations
et des
through
autochtones. Nous
nature-based
avons deux
solutions
résultats
under women's
intermédiaires
leadership,
qui
young women's
regroupent
leadership, and
l'ensemble des
indigenous
activités
leadership.
du projet. Le résultat 1100, adoption accrue de solutions fondées sur la nature,
We've
permettant l'adaptation au changement climatique, favorisant le
seeking
leadership économique
early
féminin
adoption and
durable,
high
ainsi que
adoption
la
of
conservation et la restauration de la biodiversité dans les
adaptation
trois écosystèmes
techniques
visés. Donc,
and
ici, ce que nous
in
visons à
encouraging
travers
feminine
l'implantation de ces actions
leadership,
climatiques, c'est surtout
economic leadership, as well as
l'adaptation au changement
sustainable
climatique,
leadership.
mais aussi le
We're
développement
also seeking
socio-économique qui est un pan
adaptation to
très
climate
important
change
quand on
by
parle
putting
de
in place
résilience climatique.
sustainable
Le
management of
résultat 1200
biodiversity
concerne le renforcement de la gouvernance participative,
and
favorisant
the natural
l'adaptation au changement
resources
climatique
for
par la
women
mise
and
en place
indigenous populations
d'une
in
gestion
the
durable de la
eco-region.
biodiversité. des ressources naturelles pour les
Those
femmes et
are
populations autochtones de
reflective
l'écorégion
of
ouest
the
africaine.
global affairs
C'est un
goals
projet sous
1100
régional, comme je
100
disais,
and
qui intervient dans
1200.
3 pays. Dans les 3 pays, nous sommes
There's 3 countries that
dans
we are active
3 parcs nationaux et 2 aires marines
in
protégées.
3 national parks and 1 protected
L'approche
area.
de mise en œuvre est basée sur les
Our
standards
implementation approach
design
is
sur
based
les solutions
on
fondées sur la nature. On a essayé de
nature-based
reprendre
solutions.
pas mal les 8 critères
We've
définis par
tried
l'USN pour mettre
to
en œuvre un projet
recuperate
de
the
solutions fondées sur la
criteria
nature, dont l'aspect
of
gouvernance féminine est
governance, feminine
assez important.
governance.
La première des approches, c'est
We've
surtout
tried to
l'évaluation
maintain
de la
feminine governance.
vulnérabilité,
We've
qui est
also tried
une
to
étape
implement
cruciale quand on
reduction,
parle de projet d'adaptation.
evaluation and reduction
Cette
of the
évaluation concerne
vulnerabilities
surtout les systèmes
of these
humains et les
communities
écosystèmes.
and the
Et de cette
ecosystems.
évaluation découle la planification de
And from this
l'adaptation au changement
evaluation that we
climatique qui se
do,
fait de façon
we
inclusive en
plan
prenant en compte
our
l'ensemble
adaptation to
des
climate
parties
change.
prenantes qui vivent autour de ces
And that is
écosystèmes
based on the
menacés
involvement
par
of the stakeholders
les,
who are affected by the climate change.
les problèmes de changement climatique. Il y
After
a aussi le
evaluation and
diagnostic de référence qu'on
planification,
fait pour les différentes solutions
we
fondées sur la
implement a
nature pour
diagnostic
un peu avoir un état de
for
référence de départ qui va nous
the
permettre
different
de suivre les
nature-based
bénéfices
solutions,
de ces SFN-là,
evaluating the
que ce soit sur
costs
les
and
communautés, que
benefits
ce soit sur
of each solution,
l'adaptation, que ce soit
whether
aussi
it's
sur
for the individual communities or for
l'amélioration des
the
conditions socio-économiques
ecosystems.
des communautés. La recherche scientifique et participative est aussi un aspect important dans tous
We
les
implement
projets que
scientific
nous menons
research that is
et qui nous permet
participatory.
d'impliquer les communautés, notamment
This
les
allows
femmes,
us to
dans la
involve
collecte
the
de données
communities, specifically
scientifiques
the women, in
qui
the
permettent
research
de mieux gérer
process
les
and the data
ressources quand elles
collection,
sont tributaires.
which allows them to
Nos
understand
actions
better
visent
the
aussi à
resources
renforcer l'efficacité de gestion des
and
AMP,
the reality
aires
on the
marines
ground.
protégées à travers des appuis en équipement pour la surveillance,
We
soutien
reinforce
financier pour le suivi de la
management
biodiversité. On
efficiency
intervient surtout dans
through
ces zones parce que
supporting with
les AMP sont des aires
equipments,
protégées
monitoring
assez
equipment,
importantes pour
financial
renforcer la
support
résilience
to
des communautés
ensure
côtières. Et
a
donc, notre contribution
constant
à
follow-up
ces
on the
écosystèmes-là vise surtout
biodiversity metrics.
à améliorer leur
We
santé pour
promote
permettre aux communautés
governance,
qui sont tributaires de pouvoir
inclusive governance of
tirer
natural
profit des
resources.
biens et services écosystémiques qu'elles fournissent. La promotion de la gouvernance inclusive des ressources naturelles. Nous verrons
And
tout dans les slides
we will
vont
see
suivre un
that in
outil
the following
innovant mis en
slides
place dans le
that
cadre du projet et qui
we've
permet
been
un peu
able to
d'adresser cette
implement this
notion
in
de
multiple projects
gouvernance
that respond
inclusive et
to
de l'équité genre.
the inclusive
Le
governance
renforcement des
needs.
capacités qui est transversal
And
à
I'll
toutes les
talk
actions,
about
mais
also
aussi la mise en place
capacity building
d'infrastructures durables qui permettent aux
and
communautés de pouvoir
sustainable
valoriser les
infrastructure
produits
that
issus
will
des
allow us
écosystèmes forestiers,
to
des agroécosystèmes, aussi des écosystèmes côtiers
support
et marins.
all of
Et pour
the
finir,
products
il y a
of
beaucoup
these
d'activités de
initiatives.
sensibilisation
And
et de
finally,
communication
there's a lot of
de
awareness
masse qui se fait
raising
à travers
and mass
nos projets.
communications that is part of our implementation.
Les solutions fondées sur la nature qui sont mises en
So nature-based
place
solutions
visent principalement 2 objectifs.
aim
Je l'ai dit tantôt,
mainly two
l'adaptation au
different
changement climatique et le
goals:
développement
adaptation to
socio-économique.
climate change and
On
economic
voit que
development.
les femmes sont
We
très
can
impliquées
see
dans la
that
mise
women
en
are
œuvre de
very
ces
involved
SFN-là,
in the
notamment en termes
implementation,
d'engagement communautaire, mobilisation des
especially in terms
participants,
of
mais aussi sur
community
le suivi.
engagement, mobilization,
Elles
but
participent aux
also
formations et elles
in terms
participent à
of
l'implantation
long-term
de ces
evaluation and
activités-là qui
following
sont
up.
très importantes pour l'adaptation
Put
au
some
changement
photos
climatique.
here of our
On peut citer notamment la restauration
activities,
des écosystèmes de mangrove,
notably
les épis maltais qui
mangrove
permettent de lutter contre
restoration
l'érosion côtière, parce que pour
and
ces communautés-là, certains
Epi Malte,
sont des communautés insulaires qui subissent
which is a type of
des aléas climatiques
vegetation that we
et une
plant
forte houle. Et donc, ces
fight
solutions-là leur
against
permettent
the
véritablement de pouvoir s'adapter au changement climatique et de
inundation
renforcer leur
and flooding
résilience. Il y a
and
les
erosion.
anticelles pour se protéger de la remontée saline qui
There
affecte
are
les terres, surtout rizicoles,
trenches against
il y a les
the
tifavelles
salt,
pour lutter contre l'érosion
which
côtière, les bois
there
villageois,
are tifavelles,
l'agroforesterie
which
et aussi l'ostréiculture.
bois villageois
Le
and
comité de travail sur le
agroforestry.
genre
These are
est
all
très important
different
dans notre
initiatives that we've
approche
put into
équité
place,
et inclusion du
all
genre et dans
nature-based.
la mise en œuvre des solutions fondées sur la nature.
Here's a photo of our
Ce
working
comité, si vous
committee on gender.
voulez, a été mis en place
It's a committee
après
that's been
une cartographie
implemented after
des acteurs
mapping the
et aussi
stakeholders and the
la
actors.
sensibilisation de ces acteurs-là sur les
And
questions
it
climatiques.
also
Donc,
has been
c'est
done
un comité
after awareness
inclusif
raising
dont
amongst
les
these
membres
stakeholders.
sont
It's an
désignés
inclusive
en
committee
fonction
whose members are
du genre.
designated by function of gender
Le
and
renforcement de
having
capacité des femmes
inclusivity
leaders
of all
est
genders.
aussi très important parce que
The
améliorer le
reinforcement of
pouvoir économique des femmes, c'est
capacity
améliorer leur
and
résilience. On
capacity
sait que les
building
femmes aujourd'hui
amongst
sont
women
un
leaders
pilier
is
assez
another
important
important part of our
de la
projects.
société
Women are
et
pillars of our
c'est ce qui
society,
justifie
which is why
toutes les activités économiques
we
qu'on développe
put
pour
in
ces femmes
place so
leaders-là.
many
Euh,
economic activities
Ces activités sont
involving them.
accompagnées de formations, notamment
These
en
activities
gestion
come
financière,
with
aussi
trainings
la
in
prise de parole
financial
en public,
management, public speaking,
l'alphabétisation fonctionnelle qui leur permettent
alphabetization,
d'être autonomes dans les
um,
activités de production.
that is reading and writing,
Beaucoup de renforcement de capacité
technical
sur
trainings.
des aspects techniques. Quand on parle
When
d'apiculture,
we talk
quand on
about
parle de valorisation des produits halieutiques,
bee
quand on parle
bee farming and
d'ostréiculture,
honey
c'est pas mal
production,
d'activités économiques
and other types of
sur lesquelles les
agriculture
femmes ont besoin d'avoir un
production,
certain nombre
people
de
need a
compétences.
certain
Et
amount of
donc,
technical
on
training
passe
for these things,
aussi par
right?
l'alphabétisation pour leur donner les compétences qu'il faut dans
And
leur
the
langue locale.
reading and writing, I
Donc,
wanted
les
to say,
activités
happens in their
économiques
local
sont
languages.
l'agroforesterie, l'ostréiculture et l'apiculture, qui sont des activités basées sur les fonctions bien et services
Activities that
écosystémiques,
are
surtout au niveau des
led
écosystèmes
with an
de
ecosystemic
mangroves.
approach, specifically
La
when we talk about
valorisation des produits
beekeeping and
forestiers
the
et des produits
mangrove
halieutiques
preservation
à travers,
projects.
par l'intermédiaire des infrastructures de transformation qu'on a mis à disposition de
We
ces
have
femmes-là
provided
et qui leur
transformation
permettent de
infrastructure,
valoriser tous les produits
which allows
qui
them
sont
to bring to market all of
terroir.
the primary products that exist
Il y a aussi le
in
suivi
their
participatif des
localities.
ressources par les femmes.
There's a
Dans ces zones, les
participatory
femmes exploitent
follow-up
principalement deux types de ressources,
on the resources
les huîtres
done by the
et les
women.
arches. Du
Oysters
fait
and
des changements climatiques, on implémente
arches
un suivi qui
are
permet
projects
de
that
voir la dynamique
are constantly
de ces deux
monitored
ressources-là. Donc, les femmes,
by the
après avoir
women.
été formées,
They
vont
receive a
collecter
training
des
on
échantillons
the evaluation
des
protocol.
données scientifiques qui
After
sont
receiving that
après
training, the
analysées
women
pour
collect
sortir des
samples
plans
of the
d'aménagement et
products.
d'exploitation. Donc, au moment de la restitution, elles sont là aussi pour faire
When it
porter
is time for the
leur
handing
voix
over of the
et
data,
proposer
the women
des
are
options d'aménagement
asked
de ces
to
ressources-là.
speak and deliver those results
Alors, je finis ma
alongside
présentation
a
sur
planning
les impacts
for
du genre
the
sur les
next
initiatives
steps.
d'adaptation.
I'll now
Nous
talk
avons
about
pu
the impacts
constater
of
que
gender on our
le
adaptation
genre
initiatives.
est véritablement un outil assez puissant pour
We've seen very powerful
déjà
results
renforcer l'autonomie des
in
femmes, mais
terms
aussi pour
of
lutter contre
making
les
these
changements
women
climatiques en matière
resilient and
d'adaptation.
autonomous,
Donc,
especially in terms of
l'autonomisation est
the
acquise
training
à
and
travers
the reading and writing
l'alphabétisation, les
programs.
formations
These have
techniques,
been really
la
powerful.
participation inclusive des communautés
The
dans la
inclusive
mise en œuvre
participation of
des
the
solutions fondées
communities
sur la nature
in terms
grâce
of the implementation of these
à
programs
l'appui
has been
du comité de
has
travail
shown really
sur le
great
genre.
results as well.
Le renforcement de compétences
We've
des
seen
jeunes, des femmes et
strengthening
autorités
of
locales,
the
leaders
skills
communautaires, qui a permis une
within
meilleure compréhension
youth,
sur
women,
l'importance de la
local
gouvernance
authorities, and community
inclusive
leaders.
des
And this
ressources
is
naturelles.
really also allowed a better understanding of the importance of inclusive governance for natural resources.
Aussi le renforcement de la résilience
We've
économique avec un
seen
outil qu'on appelle
working
l'association
groups
villageoise
that
d'épargne
reinforce
et
inclusive
de crédit,
participation of women in
une
resource
meilleure
management,
participation des jeunes dans
and
les
we've
initiatives
seen
de développement
strengthening
communautaire.
of economic resilience
Donc, c'est tout ce que je
of these
voulais
women's
présenter
groups in their
dans le cadre
communities.
du projet
That is what I
zéro,
wanted to
qui
show
nous
in the
permet un
context
peu
of our
de
project.
pouvoir travailler sur les questions d'équité et d'inclusion genre
We
dans les problématiques
are very happy
d'adaptation
to have
au
been
changement
able to
climatique.
work on this
À
project
travers ce projet,
and
on
strengthen
remarque
women's
aussi
participation and
la pertinence d'impliquer
autonomizing,
les femmes dans
rendering
le
them
cadre de
autonomous
gouvernance
in the context of climate
des
change.
ressources naturelles et la prise en compte de leurs connaissances dans l'implémentation des activités.
We're also
Et
happy
ceci
to
a
develop
généralement
skills.
pour
We stand committed
résultat
to those
une meilleure mise en œuvre
projects,
des activités. Donc, merci
and
et
we think women are
je reste à
crucial
l'écoute
to
pour
the
les
efficiency
questions.
of the fight against climate change. I thank you very much, and I'm looking
Merci
forward to your
beaucoup, Nicolas.
questions.
Je vais passer le
Thank you, Nicolas.
micro
I'm
à
going
John. I'm going to
to
pass
pass the
to
microphone
John, who
to
will lead the
John
question
now.
and answer session now. Please raise your hand if you want to speak or put your question in the chat directly.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much. And thanks so much to all the speakers for presenting today. So right now on the screen are instructions on how to share your questions. Are there any initial questions that people have coming up? If so, please either share it in the chat or feel free to raise your hand. If not, then I have a couple questions ready. So maybe we'll do one of those. But if anyone else has a question, please do feel free to leave it in the chat or raise your hand, and we will get to them. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now. So the first question that I had was, so I think a few of your kind of projects, maybe more Anne's more specifically, but most of yours did touch on sort of like climate action. There's lots of sort of like very specific climate emergencies that come up, but then there are also like how do you, so here's the question. So lots of climate projects focus on immediate adaptation needs, but then how do you balance this sort of urgent action, so responding to floods or disaster, with building long-term systems of equity and environmental justice? So I don't know if anyone would like to kind of start this off, start responding to this question first. And Nicolas, Ahumuza.
Sure, I can just speak briefly to that. Our project is really based on a theory of change that says that if you give women capacity and tools to address their climate risks and climate issues, then they will be able, through networking and other sorts of activities, be able to continue the work that they've done over time. So, for instance, one of the things our women have learned is they've learned about funds available to them through their local governments, which they weren't aware of before. And now they're writing their proposals and their climate action plans to take advantage of those funds. They're also, I think one of the most valuable things has been the the climate awareness sessions that they took on themselves and that have become very, very popular throughout the areas where they work and have been well covered by local media. So, you have to have, however, a government and other organizations that are willing to continue to support them to create that enabling environment. So.
Thank you so much, John, for the question. One of the platforms we use, like I mentioned earlier, the advocacy platforms like the Women CSO podcast, where we link the local leaders with the different with women to address the different issues that they are facing within the community, and also balancing long-term and short-term solutions. Like I gave an example of the water gardens. Previously, whenever we had a challenge of flooding, people would shift from their garden or from their homes and have to rent somewhere else. Also at our office, we would have to put measures, let's say like the sewing machine, which you find that the sewing machines and other equipments that we use in our work, you find that we are trying to find elevated platforms to put them so that whenever it floods, they are not ruined. But currently, it's something that we have found a solution, and it's working perfectly very well to see that at least like the water gardens have really been a lifesaver in regards to some of the places where, because the fact that we are also on a lake shore, some places are not like favorable, but the places where we have put them, they have created an impact.
Thanks so much. Nicolas,
Peut-être
allez-y.
peut-être juste pour contribuer à ça.
Just to
Moi, je pense
contribute to
qu'aussi
what Anne and
les communautés aujourd'hui
Ahumuza
sont
have
conscients
said.
des enjeux
I think that the
climatiques
communities
qu'il y a.
today are aware
Sauf que
of
la
the
plupart du
climate
temps, c'est des
changes
gens qui n'ont pas
that
assez de moyens
people are worried about.
pour
The people who are
s'adapter, pour
struggling
mettre
are
en
those who
place
do not
des
have the
actions
means
climatiques qui
to
sont
put in
durables.
place
D'où
solutions,
l'importance
long-term
aujourd'hui
solutions to
de
climate change.
mettre en place des
Hence,
solutions
the
douces
importance
d'adaptation
of
comme
putting in
quelques
place
initiatives qu'on a présentées et qui ne
solutions,
coûtent pas cher aux
nature-based
communautés.
solutions,
Ceci est très
cost-effective
important.
solutions that are
En plus, les
community-led.
communautés ont souvent des programmes
Communities
de lutte
often
contre le
have
changement climatique qu'ils mènent annuellement.
programs,
Et quand
yearly
ils n'ont pas
programs
les moyens
to
de
fight
mettre en
against
œuvre,
climate change.
elles sont capables
And
d'aller
when
chercher des fonds à
they
travers
don't have the
des
means
lettres
to
d'appui
develop these
auprès
programs
de bailleurs
themselves,
pour pouvoir implémenter.
often they're
Je donne
able to apply
juste
for
l'exemple
funding
de la
themselves.
communauté d'un
And the
village en
example
Casamance, Diambarin,
of
qui
a
a un
village
programme
in
de restauration
Casamance
forestière annuelle.
has a yearly
Ça, c'est
program
des actions,
of
à mon sens,
forest
pérennes et
restoration.
qui visent à renforcer leur résilience.
They have a
C'est le genre
program that
d'initiative qu'il faut encourager,
allows them
mais aussi
to do
insister
this
surtout sur
autonomously.
la formation
It's important to
et
insist
la
on trainings
sensibilisation.
and awareness raising.
Aussi par rapport à la capacité de faire un plaidoyer pour aller chercher les fonds,
and
même si c'est
advocacy as well,
au
so
niveau
that
local.
they can go
Parce
and
que
get
s'il
this
s'agit
funding, whether
de
it's a
savoir les
local
techniques pour
or
implémenter
national
des
or
actions
international
d'adaptation, je
funding.
pense que de plus en plus les communautés, y
More and
compris les
more,
femmes,
I think
ont ces
communities,
connaissances-là.
specifically women, have the knowledge and now they can go get the resources.
All right, well, thank you so much. I do see a hand raised, but unfortunately we are out of time. Gamu Chire, if you wouldn't mind, if you want to write your question in the chat, maybe I'll see if we can get the question responded over writing over email. Does that work okay for you? Okay, perfect.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, and then I'll pass it off to Yetska just for a few closing remarks.
Yes, thank you so much. We always seem to run out of time. We could have continued talking for a long time, I think. And I apologize that we hadn't had time for too many questions at all. But it was a delight to listen to your presentations and learn more about your work. Thank you, Musa, Anne, and Nicolas for your presentation on the amazing work that you and your organizations are doing. And thank you for sharing your valuable insights on the role of women and girls in climate action and adaptability. I also wanted to thank Justin Doucet, our interpreter, who did a great job trying to keep up with us. And I also would like to thank all the participants for being here. I invite you to visit the resource library page on the SPUR website for all sorts of useful information and tools, and eventually the recordings of these sessions. And I also would like to ask you to please complete the post survey. We will send it to you over email, but those are important to us as they really help us always trying to improve. And I think that was it for today. Thank you, everybody.